OCs come in all shapes and sizes, and all sorts of colors too. When it comes to creating a new character, we for the most part have an unlimited array of choices and combinations of colors we can pick from. Of course, what actually looks good is a bit subjective, but you get what I mean. Yet, there's one combination of colors that seems to annoy us to no end: red and black. Why is that? So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at red and black OCs. What are they, and why is there such a hatred towards them? Let's talk about that. So what's the deal with red and black OCs? I mean, red's a great color, black's a great color. Artistically speaking, they can work very well together. Yet there's this negative stigma associated with the choice. So what am I talking about when I say red and black OCs? Red and black OCs are characters that are known and notorious for being overly edgy, dark, angsty, tough, mysterious. You know the type. Oftentimes, they're presented in shows and entertainment as the bad guys, the evil ones, intent on destroying the world, or accumulating massive amounts of wealth or power, you name it. Or they're presented as the lone wolf, silent but strong types, cold, capable, cunning. They'll get the job done, and they're not out to make friends. In MLP especially, you tend to not see characters that are truly red and black in appearance. In shows like these, the appearance is often very telling of the mood and personality of a character. That's why the happy and bouncy characters are colored very brightly and vividly, whereas the more emotional characters tend to have darker, more flat colors. And of course, the dark, evil characters often have an appearance to match. It's important to note that red and black OCs, at least in the way that I'm referring to them, don't actually have to be red and black in appearance. They tend to be called this because often enough, they have a darker, more unfriendly appearance to them. More often than not, being a mixture of, you guessed it, red and black, but they can look like almost anything. And on that same note, just because a character is red and black in appearance does not necessarily make them red and black OCs, at least in this context. Now how's that for a head spinner? So again, why is there so much negative criticism towards red and black OCs? What's the problem? Well, one of the major problems many have with them is that they just don't fit into the world of Equestria. They often look very out of place. Remember, Equestria is, for the most part, a very bright and friendly location. Plenty of pastel-colored characters going about their happy lives. It's a very idealistic world. It could be a bit jarring suddenly seeing a red and black OC in this environment. And as I mentioned earlier, in shows like MLP, the appearance of a character is often very telling of their personality. Red and black is almost always reserved for the truly evil in Equestria. So guys like Sombra and Tyrek, this is why the changelings were given a whole new look, specifically a new color palette and theme when they were reformed, and why villains who end up being redeemed, like Starlight and Sunset, tend to not be so outwardly evil looking. Now obviously that isn't to say that your character has to solely consist of bright pastel colors. The choice is yours. But the fact is, unless they're full-time villain, red and black characters just do not fit in easily from a visual standpoint with the rest of Equestria. Of course, it's not just the appearance of the character that matters here. Personality and disposition are as much of a factor at play as the presentation. Now, maybe this is just me, but oftentimes when I see or hear about red and black OCs, they're frequently these dark, angsty, mysterious, edgy individuals. They're often the perfect assassins, trained in 43 different fighting styles, highly skilled in covert operations with level 35 technology, deadly with a well-balanced spork, and practically unstoppable. So the problem that characters like this face is that they end up being exactly like Mary Sue's. Now, obviously, the more common and well-known version of a Mary Sue is the typical perfect princess. Great at everything, loved by all, unbelievably powerful and unstoppable, yada yada yada, set to achieve an unrealistically high standard. And while the traditional Mary Sues are normally presented as good and just characters, red and black OCs are their opposite counterpart. Both are Mary Sues, but on completely different sides of the spectrum. And this is where I think a lot of the negative criticism stems from for red and black OCs. They tend to be anti-Mary Sues. Sure, they're usually dark and gloomy and have a tragic backstory and don't live what we would consider glamorous lives, but they're still often absolutely unrealistic characters, and it can be quite insufferable. As I've mentioned many times over in previous videos, it's important to make your character realistic within the scope of the universe they live in. Equestria is a very bright and happy place. You tend not to have characters who are perfect soldiers. Now that's not to say that you can't have a dark or gloomy or edgy character to begin with, but you should take into account the world that surrounds them. Again, Equestria is a generally very safe and kind place to live. That's not to say that characters in this world can only have great and positive upbringings, but if your character has a backstory that befits the Fallout universe, that might be a bit questionable. In my honest opinion, I've never really had too many problems with red and black OCs. Visually, they can actually be quite appealing when done correctly, such as using less contrasting colors and shades, and a personality with a touch of edge to it can create an excellent contrast to the bubbly world we know and love. Red and black OCs can absolutely work. But of course, it can be off-putting to see the truly dark, edgy, red and black OCs. They just don't fit into the world in many ways, and they can admittedly come across as just a bit cringy. Often a futile attempt to make their character as hardcore, or powerful, or as misunderstood as possible. Simply put, they don't make interesting characters. At least in my opinion, they tend to be boring and uninspired when taken to the edginess extremes. I think it comes from novice writers trying too hard to make their character as impressive as possible. There's nothing wrong with making badass characters, but it's always helpful to keep things within the reality and scope of the universe they were created for. But now I want to hear from you. What's your opinion on red and black OCs? Do you like them, hate them, somewhere in between? Let me know in the comment section below. I always love hearing what you have to say. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then be sure to leave a like. As well, don't forget to subscribe to help support me for free, and it only takes a click. You can also find me outside of the show on Facebook and DeviantArt, where I post artwork as well as real-life shenanigans. I even have Twitter too, and stream on Picardo TV. All these links in the description. But with that, thank you again so much for watching this video. This is Tyandaga signing out.